How's it going, everybody? Let's take a look back at what happened this weekend in college football. On Friday, we had BYU cruise their first real test of the week as they crushed Boise State 51-17. Zach Wilson looking great as usual. Uh, everybody thought this would be the one real team that could test BYU. Not so much. Real easy win for them. At one point, I think it was 45-3 going into the fourth quarter. BYU just cruised through the game, never really being contested, which I kind of figured that when I was going over the game. Uh, BYU, this is their eighth game together this season. They've played together, they've been together, uh, they have momentum. This was only Boise State's third game of the year, and especially, I mean, look, Jack Sayers played great against Air Force. On top of the fact that Utah State last week. But on top of the fact that he didn't even get to finish, I believe, the second quarter. Um, and then, well, you know the rest, I should say. Um, but when you go down to your third string quarterback against a team like BYU, they're not going to leave you much room for error, and that's just not going to be a good outcome for you. And it wasn't for Boise as BYU romped all over them, 51-17. Um, Sadly, still with their lack of schedule, I don't think it's going to do much. I don't think they'll get higher than they are right now. I think eighth, maybe seventh. It'll be about as high as they get. But once these Pac-12 teams start playing, and you got teams like Indiana, once Wisconsin starts, if they actually get to start playing some games and playing major competition, I'm just afraid they'll surpass BYU. So if they could hover between 7 and 9, I think if they could end the season there, that's great for a program like that, especially with the lack of schedule they've had. Now, if it was a normal year where they had got to schedule their normal strength, you might be able to argue for a fifth or sixth finish, but just not this year. And then Saturday night, of course, in South Bend, they were screaming touchdown Jesus after a double overtime win over number one Clemson, who had a 36 game regular season streak snapped. Of course, without Trevor Lawrence and multiple defensive starters. But DJ Uiagalelei. Sorry, I had to make sure I got that pronunciation right. Like I said, it took me all of 2017 as a Bama fan before I could get to a Tungavaloa. So, just want to make sure I can at least get as close to the pronunciation right for it. And as good as he plays, he deserves it. He was 29 of 44, 439 yards and two touchdowns. Ian Book, by far his best performance of the year. It was 22 of 39, 310 yards, and one interception. But to me, the 68 yards he gained on the ground were by far the most important plays he made. What I seen in the fourth quarter, and especially in the two overtime periods, Clemson were on his heels a bunch, and just the ability to avoid the sack, escape the pressure, and you go from a loss of maybe 5 or 6 to getting a first down or getting it to 2nd and 2 or a makeable 3rd and 2 rather than a long 3rd and 14. And it made a difference. If you look at Clemson's second overtime, the 2 sacks they took on first and second down, that demoralized them. And, I think, look, Uiagalelei, he played great, or the numbers looked great. But I think had Trevor Lawrence played in the game, how best to put this. I think his yardage would have been similar. He might not have even thrown for the amount of yards uh, that DJ did, but I think Trevor Lawrence wouldn't have took those 2 sacks. I think he would have gotten rid of the ball because of his pocket awareness. I just think little things like that Trevor Lawrence, his experience, would have allowed him, and his game awareness. That's where I think it would have made a difference in the outcome of the game. And that's why I said in my other video that at the end of the day, I don't think this game is going to have a huge impact on the outcome of the season. Now, obviously, this was huge for Notre Dame. And look, don't tell that to anybody in South Bend because the way they stormed the field, you would not, from the way that looked, there was no pandemic or anything going on. And look, this is not going to be a popular view, but it was great to see. It was great to see people living again and enjoying life, out celebrating something instead of living in fear. And, look, I'm not the biggest Notre Dame fan in the world, but it was just great to see storm the field, celebrating, and just enjoying things. But either way, just it was great to see, and hats off to the Irish. Also, running back Kyron Williams for Notre Dame, 23 carries, 140 yards, and 3 touchdowns. To me, other than the plays that Ian Book made, but really this guy was the workhorse and won the game for the Irish, or the MVP of the game. Ian Book isn't able to get the game-winning drive and the plays he made in overtime and get Notre Dame the victory without this guy carrying the workload. So to me, him and Ian Book MVPs. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the ACC championship, and I just don't know if it's good for Notre Dame to have really pissed Clemson off because now Notre Dame has a target from one of the big bullies in college football. But hey, we shall see. Now on to the world's largest cocktail party, where really Kyle Trask and the Gators just took Georgia to the woodshed. Really, now Georgia jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and it kind of looked like the Dawgs were there to play. But from then on out, Florida just dominated the rest of the game, outscoring Georgia 41-14 the rest of the way. And to me, Kyle Trask put his name firmly in the Heisman Trophy discussion. And it's kind of shocking he hadn't. If you look at his numbers, he's just quietly been putting up these numbers. His 5th straight game of 4 touchdowns or more. And I think it's time we might be need to put Kyle as the Heisman front runner, or at least I am. The numbers he's putting up, and to do it against a team like Florida, that's very. I mean, Georgia, a defense like Georgia, I know they're a little thin right now, but very impressive. But Kyle Trask was 30 of 43, 474 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And Georgia's quarterback woes continue. Stetson Bennett, the fourth, was 5 of 16 for 78 yards. And then let's see, what's his name? Dewan Mathis was 4 for 13, 34 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. So pretty much Georgia quarterbacks went a combined 9 of 29 for 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. And that is not going to win in SEC football weekend. and week out. That's just not going to cut it. And Kirby Smart, that's the one area he's going to have to fix. He's come up short, and letting Justin Fields out the door is proving to be a huge black eye on this program. Especially you look at what he's doing at Ohio State. The Heisman Trophy, to me, is probably going to come down to Kyle Trask and Justin Fields. While personally, I look at Mac Jones. I think he's having a great year. The only thing, Mac Jones and Najee Harris will probably cancel each other out, I fear, as a Alabama fan. So just looking at it through a neutral lens, I do think they'll cancel each other out. Uh, and I think Kyle Trask, Justin Fields, and then you look at Zach Wilson, what he's doing at BYU. Now, I do think Mac Jones should be mentioned at least in the top 3 or 4, but I think that third spot will come down between him and Wilson. But either way, other than that, we had Michigan, Jim Harbaugh. His hot seat just keeps getting hotter and hotter as Indiana thumps Michigan 38-21. Let's glance at a few more scores here before we jump off here. Come on now, don't fail me now. Come on. Miami escaped on Friday night with a 44-41 win over NC State. Texas gets a win over West Virginia, 17-13. North Carolina bounces back after getting beat by Virginia last week. They crushed the Blue Devils 56-24. Liberty goes on the road at Virginia Tech and beats them 38-35. SMU gets the win over Temple 47-23. Cincinnati crushed Houston 38-10. And a week after upsetting Michigan, Michigan State gets clocked by Iowa 49-7. Sorry, my scores are not loading up here. Come on now. See, USC has a big comeback win over Arizona State. Nebraska loses to Northwestern 21-13. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. Oklahoma thumps Kansas. Maryland and Talia Tungavaloa, the Alabama transfer, and Tua Tungavaloa's younger brother, they go on the road to Happy Valley and thump Penn State 35-19. And Mississippi State getting the 24-17 win over Vandy. So Mike Leach finally getting that second win. Gosh, I'm sorry, this thing is not wanting to work. Oklahoma State bounces back, gets a 20-18 win over Kansas State. Pittsburgh blasts Florida State 41-17. Iowa State beats Baylor 38-31. And despite trying to make a comeback, Colorado beats UCLA 48-42. Texas A&M destroys South Carolina 48-3. Aggies really looking good, really turning things up. And speaking of Florida beating Georgia, Texas A&M has the head-to-head. So should A&M end up with only one loss at the end of the regular season, whoever wins the SEC championship, should it end up being Alabama and Florida in the SEC championship with one loss each, you're either going to have Texas A&M, who their only loss being to Alabama, or they either lost to the SEC champion or they handed the SEC champion their only loss. So A&M could be sitting pretty, depending on how things work out for that fourth and final playoff spot, if they continue to win. Now, they do have a tricky game at Auburn. And the way Auburn's been playing, you really don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to get the team that got throttled by Georgia, or are you going to get the team that just stomped LSU? You don't know. But Arkansas beating Tennessee 24-13, and then Oregon all over Stanford 35-14. Ohio State 49-27 over Rutgers, and Coastal Carolina 23-6 over South Alabama. And I think the rest are postponements. Yep. So that'll get us for this week in college football. Of course, we've got Bama and LSU this week. It's going to be fun for me as an Alabama fan, I hope, getting a little revenge. But as far as what that game has meant over the past few years, it's not, frankly, if CBS could have picked some other games, I'm sure they would have. Knowing what they know now, that game's kind of been predetermined for a while. But either way, check back with us. Should have something on the pros by tomorrow. But until then, take care. Please hit the like or subscribe button. Take care. God bless. Peace.